Welcome to the Voices of Burnaby, a podcast where we have open, insightful conversations about the issues shaping our city and the people working to make Burnaby a better and safer place to live, work, and thrive. I'm your host, Mayor Mike Hurley. Today we're talking about homelessness and community safety, something that becomes especially critical as we head into the colder months. Winter brings added pressure on our shelters, outreach teams, food banks, and first responders. It also brings new challenges for people experiencing homelessness and for neighbors who want to know their community is safe, but also compassionate and well supported. To help unpack this, I'm joined by Carol-Ann Flanagan, Programme Co-Ordinator of the Society to End Homelessness in Burnaby. Someone who has spent years on the front lines working with vulnerable residents and helping coordinate essential services across the city. The Society to End Homelessness in Burnaby plays a vital role, coordinating local service providers, volunteers, and housing organizations to provide consistent care. Their work reduces pressure on emergency services, supports public safety, and helps people move towards stable housing. Last month, they were recognized by the Burnaby Board of Trade as the 2025 not-for-profit organization for the year. Very well deserved. Carol-Ann has overseen the expansion of Burnaby's outreach work, including the extreme weather response program, mobile showers and hygiene services, and partnerships that connect people to housing, mental health, supports, and basic necessities. Her leadership has been central to strengthening how agencies work together and how the city responds to urgent needs. Earlier this year, she was awarded the King Charles III's Coronation Medal for her inspirational work. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Carol-Ann, I'd like to ask you about the Society and the work that you do here in Burnaby, the important work you do in Burnaby. And maybe you could fill in, what's so different about this time of year? Do things get worse? So I'd love you to fill us in on that.
Okay, well, most of our work, beside advocating for more housing and more support for our unhoused, we run an outreach resource center, which is pretty unique because we have different service providers who come in once a week to help those in need, the most vulnerable. I was looking at our stats, and just since January, 603 individuals, brand new, who had never been to any of our services, came to us. And so they either saw the ministry, CRA comes in, Services Canada, we have advocates, taxes, we can do people's taxes 10 years back, haircuts, services like Spirit of the Children, who work with our Indigenous population, and of course progressive housing. And that is like the inside. Then of course there's hot meals and clothing. What's unique to Burnaby, and actually most of BC, is our mobile shower unit, which we open twice a week for people, and that's definitely in part of the city of Burnaby, who put our name forward to the Union of Municipalities.
That's right.
And so we were able to purchase, it's a prototype, and it was made in Canada. And and it gets well used.
Yeah, and I've certainly seen that, and that's adds so much to the dignity of people who want to look like they can go and apply for jobs if the opportunity comes along. And I've seen the incredible work that gets done out of your location. And the flu, the vaccinations, everything, looking after people's feet, everything really, you do such a great job. And the volunteers, you have many, many great volunteers. And I know you serve food there on Thursday mornings and some Tuesdays as well, is that correct?
Wednesday evenings.
Wednesday evening?
Yeah, the neighborhood church has open to anybody who wants to come for a good hot meal.
Yeah, so I congratulate you and your volunteers. You know, I can't even imagine what our city would be like if your group wasn't there to pick up, you know, to fill in those gaps that are so missed. So thank you all for the incredible work that you do. But I would like to ask your view, because you hear a lot about homelessness, public safety, and how they tie together, and what are some of the myths around that? And maybe, I know you're very experienced in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people do assume that homelessness and crime go hand in hand, when in reality, when an unsheltered person does commit a crime, it's out of desperation. It's not just a fluky idea. And yet, at the same time, there's more violent crime committed against unsheltered people or the most vulnerable people. So one of the remedies is, one, get people off the streets, give them a home, give them more than a shelter, like have them feel at home. And it's sad that people have to be so desperate, and I understand everybody who lives here, they don't want things stolen from them, and neither would I. And I am a resident of Burnaby. But when you're looking at people who are desperate people will do desperate things.
Yes, but it's, I think it would be fair to say that that's, you know, I think it's a lot overplayed, that homeless and those unsheltered, you know, cause many of the crimes, which I don't think is factual, and certainly doesn't play out in any of the stats. And as you say, when people get desperate, you know, unfortunately, people do get desperate and do things that they wouldn't normally do. So we have a community safety well-being plan here in Burnaby, and you know, many groups come together at the table. I'm sure you sit at that table, right?
District 4, yeah.
Pardon me?
District 4.
District 4, yeah. And could you explain the success of that and how that works all together through the public safety?
Well, around the table itself, you do have RCMP, you have regular citizens who sit at that table, you have store owners and mall security people, and we just discuss what we see and where, and if there's any prevention that can happen. That's always the best medicine, right? Prevention, then stopping something before the fact. And so we just keep our eyes open. When we see a potential problem, we bring it to the table, and between all of us, we try to find a solution, or again, prevention.
Right, and I think that comes down to, you know, supporting vulnerable people reduces risks, and I think that's something we all need to keep in mind. I know you're a big proponent of that, so I'll let you speak to that.
Well, I was going to say, again, we're going into the myth that it's all homeless people or unsheltered people who are committing crimes or against property or people. And that's not true. And we have to let the people know that it's not, occasionally, yes, we will admit that there are some very vulnerable, very desperate people that are unsheltered.
Right.
But most of the crime isn't committed by them. Yet they're the ones who will get, I'm going to use the word bad rap, because it's easy. It's easy to look at someone and say, oh, well, they're not responsible because they don't have a home. Yeah. So they're the problem, when it's not.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in don't judge anyone until you walk a mile in their shoes. And you know, unfortunately, that is some of the stigma that is out there. You know, we have many organizations in Burnaby that work together, many nonprofits, And I know my experience with a firefighter working with all those groups, everyone tries to come together to do the right things around our vulnerable populations. And you know, it's an ongoing task that needs to be paid attention to. And I think we always have to be willing to make the changes that are necessary. Now, I've always believed that to have change that really lasts and change that's forever, that all levels of government, I think, need to come together and actually have a conversation. Unfortunately, everyone's out there doing their own thing, and I don't think that leads to really good answers. And we need to be speaking to those with lived experiences, to understand, to those who work on the ground, and not make so many top-down decisions that we see, with health authorities and others. So, what's your thought on that? It really takes everyone pulling together, I think, to get real answers.
Yeah, and not just verbal answers, that we need solid. And it takes all levels of government, and for here in Burnaby, Fraser Health.
Right.
And so what we need, of course, it'll always cost money, no matter what you're gonna, we need to build housing that would, if we're just looking at our vulnerable people, we need housing that has a wraparound services. So like at the ORC, we have Mosaic, who's part of the mental health area. If we had housing that, there's 97 people, we did the homeless count in March. Between the shelter, the temporary shelter, the extreme weather, out of the 205, there were still 97 people who were outside. Right. In the rain. Right? So what if we had housing? Okay, what ideas that go into my brain, which I would love to be able to say could happen. What if instead of the next time we build temporary, keeping the ones we have, but instead of building new shelter space, let's say it costs $2 million. I'm not an accountant, couldn't tell you, but you would know. What if we took that $2 million? Now, social services gives a single person $500 a month for rent. At minimum wage, if you're working, your gross is $718. Your net per month is $24.20. I looked it up. Right. Right now, the one-bedroom apartment average is $2,100. That only leaves you $320. Right. What if, taking part of that $2 million, how many people could we house with that money? If we could get landlords, if we could get developers involved, saying, could you spare us so many apartments? Social services would still do their $500 a month. That $2 million we could top up. Mm-hmm. And we would get less people on the street, less people in the shelter. It would be once for a very short time if they had to go into a shelter. How many people could we actually house? That's like one of my ideas.
Yeah. Have you ever had the opportunity to put that forward to?
You're the first person I'm saying it to.
Yeah, like, to anyone from the province, for example, or from?
No, this has just been playing in my brain for the last couple of weeks, of looking how we can help people, and also having more, again, supportive housing. Another one of my wish lists, if we had an apartment building, like a large building, all rental, but this time do it 30% of their net salary, not gross, because it does make a difference. But anybody can live there. So the person who's making or on social services and has $21,000 a year to someone who's making $200,000 a year, everybody pays the same amount. You become a community. It's not the haves and have-not. Oh, this building is BC housing, so that means everybody is poor. Or, you know, everybody mixes together. What I find at the ORC, a lot of people who come out just for the meal, they've made it part of the community. It's not, oh, they have not. They're just part of that neighborhood, and it shows, and they look out for one another.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in the mixed models as well. The rent geared to income makes total sense, and that's where we should be. And BC Housing does have some of that, but not in the mixed model as you explained. And I think that would be a much better model to help people get lifted up. So, yeah, those are some of the things that really need to be discussed. Is Burnaby different, do you think, than some other communities? Or there's always differences, right? That's why one size usually doesn't fit all for most things. Can you explain some problem much bigger that we can solve alone, do you think, in Burnaby? It's very difficult, given the municipality's limitations. Support resources or policies needed. It would be interesting if you have anything off the top of your head.
Well, it's interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the Canadian Alliance End Homelessness National Convention in Montreal. And as I was listening and speaking to other leaders of other communities, I was thinking, gee, Burnaby's doing pretty good when you look at other communities, including big ones like Montreal and Toronto and that. There's I still think we're playing behind the 8 ball, but you've done so much in the last 7 years. One thing I think is very helpful is having the outreach team with the city. And I know I have personally called on that team often when I see someone that I know they need to be connected more than what I can do.
Yeah, they need some guidance.
Yeah, and so when I'm looking at that, I think that Burnaby is doing very well in compared nationally. And yet, we still have homeless people. There was another thing that I've been looking at. There was a community that was doing, they call it pallet housing. Mm-hmm. And so it's pallet housing is like an encampment, but you put pallets on the ground, you let them put their tents on the pallets so they're not on the ground. But it is a more secure area. And I know that homeless, unsheltered people like to there's safety in numbers. And so I wouldn't want to call it really a tent city, mm-hmm. but it's called a pallet. And this way they have their own little space, their own little tent, and then from there we get them into housing, or we get them into the shelter, into transitional housing, or into proper housing. Right. And it just gives people more dignity than, putting a tent in the forest or in a little, alcove somewhere.
Well, all those ideas are very interesting. My concern, though, is from all the transitional pieces that have been tried, there's no next step. You get into the transition, and then transition to where? And so we have transitional housing in the city, but I'm not sure that it's leading to the next step, or at least not enough of it's leading to the next step. So that's something that really needs to be worked out so that people can keep moving through, and we need to have those next steps available for people who are ready to do that. I wonder if you can speak to that.
Well, yeah, when people are ready, those who have substance use, that's because that I know that'll be on people's minds. There is a way of thinking not mine, but a way of thinking that the reason that someone is homeless is because they have substance use. And yes, for some, that is true. For others, they become homeless first. And then, you know, someone offers them something for them not to feel hungry, not to feel cold.
Right.
And so they start to use. When they realize, oh, if I don't use, I'm really sick, I'm really hurting. There was that moment between I'm really hurting and I'm okay, that people are willing to go to detox, to be able to get out of that vicious cycle.
Right.
We don't have. And the ones that are available aren't available because there's waiting lists. So people get stuck in that. Although, if you're going to even look at drug use, those who overdose and die from it are usually people who are housed, live by themselves,
Yep.
and are recreational. So, you know, we have to kind of take that off the table.
Yeah.
And then having more wraparound services, including mental health, job training. You know, whether it's the trades or if someone wants to go back to school, how do we get them to, this is very comfortable because I have a little place to live. And you're right, people have more dignity if they are self-sufficient.
Right.
They have more dignity getting out of a tent and going into transitional housing. And so again, it's all about wraparound services. That costs money. And I don't think it can be left alone for just the municipalities. Municipalities have a lot to do with it because how we treat our neighbors is we need to treat everybody with dignity and respect. Because everybody is someone's brother, sister, son, daughter, everybody is. So we need to get everybody on board and more than just talk.
Absolutely, action speaks far more than words. But we have had some successes here in Burnaby, for sure. We had the task force in Home Shelter. I think we did a lot of good work through that. We have a collaborative, data-driven approach, you know, to try and fill the gaps that are out there, and you're a big part of that. But I still think lasting change takes a big effort, you know, to really get to issues like you just mentioned, which is, you know, those who are using and need the help. But when they're ready to get help, that help needs to be available, and that often not the case. So, you know, maybe you could just describe some of the work that has been done in Burnaby that has been successful.
Well, right off the bat, I'm thinking of actually when you were first elected, you met with us, Lookout, Progressive, and there were no shelters in Burnaby. There was nothing for our unsheltered, and so you at the city, under your guidance, got to work and built that 40-person shelter. Right, for 30 men, 10 women. It has been packed ever since. And then you helped negotiate and got the 52-bed transitional housing.
Right.
And then from there, the 48. And so that's an extra 100 spaces for people. And now, coming in the spring, we'll have another shelter, a temporary,
Yep.
but another,
Yep.
and then the extreme weather, the winter shelter, which
Yeah.
was something I know that we had spoken about years ago too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take all of those numbers together, you are looking at 100, thinking in French now, 180
Yeah.
people that are off the street
Right.
temporarily, but they're off the street. And then the city bringing in the outreach workers in 2 years ago in October.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'd like to give a shout out to those workers.
oh,
because
the J team,
They do a tremendous amount of work,
yes.
and that's difficult work.
Oh, yeah.
It takes its toll, so big shout out to them. We're very lucky to have them here in the city. But this is great discussion. I'll just end with a very simple question.
Oh.
What's your favorite thing about Burnaby?
You know, I think it's so funny you have this picture here of Deer Lake,
Yeah.
because when I need to go and clear my head, I actually walk around the lake.
Yeah.
I go to every festival, anything that I can do to go to Deer Lake, that's my favorite place. I just think we need more parking. That's about it around there, or the 144 bus. But yeah, it's where I go and clear my head.
Well, we all need to have those kinds of spaces where we can go and be ourselves. For me, it's playing music, but that's kind of what clears my head. But anyway, Carol-Ann, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the tremendous work that you and your team do day in and day out here in Burnaby. You truly make a big difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Helping people experiencing homelessness isn't just about the compassion at the heart of this city. When people have access to shelter, services, and support in locations that are suitable and sustainable, both vulnerable residents and neighborhoods are much safer. To understand what these supports and locations should look like, we're evaluating our homelessness response to identify gaps and improve services and resources using data and performance measures. At the same time, we continue advocating with all levels of government for more mental health services, increased housing, and homelessness supports, and a more collaborative approach that allows lasting solutions to be shaped locally with input from those on the ground. Over the winter months, let's remember to check in on our neighbors and to stay mindful of those experiencing homelessness. As we continue building a community that's safe and supportive for everyone. We will be back in the new year for our next episode. In the meantime, be sure to read my weekly letter from the Mayor on LinkedIn. I'm Mayor Mike Hurley, and thank you so much for listening.